I'm Bailey, and today I'm going to be talking about supercharging your workflow by using WhiteRabbitNeo for AI-powered analysis. So first, a little bit about me. I'm a cybersecurity and political science student at Old Dominion in southeastern Virginia. I'm also a cybersecurity intern at Kendo, which focuses on creating agentic security applications for enterprises. And I'm also a contributor to the WhiteRabbitNeo open source project, which is what I will be talking about today, which is sponsored by Kendo. So what is WhiteRabbitNeo? WhiteRabbitNeo is an uncensored open source AI model specifically for DevSecOps. What is an uncensored AI model? So AI models like ChatGPT or Gemini are censored, which means that they don't have which means that they are instructed to not respond to certain user queries. So if you ask it to write a DDoS attack for you, it'll tell you no and call you a criminal. And so this makes the models unusable for cybersecurity applications because despite the ethical nature of cybersecurity, those hacking-related questions are heavily censored. So you either have to the only real way is to jailbreak it and just trick it into answering, which eats up a lot of valuable time. In contrast, WhiteRabbitNeo is uncensored, which means it can answer any hacking-related questions without you having to trick it. So WhiteRabbitNeo is trained. So I'll go into a little bit about the training of WhiteRabbitNeo. We try to release a new model set roughly every quarter, and when the training process starts, the team first finds which large language model is currently scoring the best on coding and software engineering evaluations. So in the past, this has meant that our foundational model has been Llama, Llama 3.1, DeepSeek, and Qwen. And these LLMs also have licenses that allow us to use them as our foundational model. Our engineers then go in and remove the guardrails that restrain the AI models from answering those questions and making it uncensored. Next, we add in our own proprietary data, and this data focuses on red teaming and offensive cybersecurity applications. This model is also code first, which means it is instructed to respond with code whenever that's applicable. So this focus on software engineering makes WhiteRabbitNeo great at detecting vulnerabilities in code, writing code segments and exploits, and also teaching students about coding. And the final thing I want to say on this slide is that WhiteRabbitNeo promotes human-in-the-loop AI usage, which that means that humans validate AI responses to ensure that they're in line with whatever your company objectives are, rather than trying to fully automate the process. So this ensures accountability and just helps lighten the workload of security professionals rather than working to fully replace them. So it's just giving them a chance to get ahead on their workloads. So why is WhiteRabbitNeo important? So attackers have already begun using AI tools, both those found commercially like ChatGPT and ones on the dark web to conduct cyber attacks. And so to effectively counter a rise in AI-driven cyber attacks, both red and blue teams need to be familiar with and use AI tools to avoid falling behind on attacks, which leaves systems at risk of exploitation. So we'll talk a little bit about how WhiteRabbitNeo helps to reduce tedium by conducting time-intensive research and analysis for security professionals to allow them to get ahead on issues and work proactively rather than reactively. WhiteRabbitNeo, like I said, is also a great teaching tool and mentor for beginning security professionals, so we'll spend some time here looking at how AI is revolutionizing the learning landscape and how you can optimize your experiences with AI. First, we're going to look at an example of secure code analysis using WhiteRabbitNeo. So through Kendo, you can use WhiteRabbitNeo in your IDE. You can also use it directly in the chat interface on app.whiterabbitneo.com for free. This version is just a little prettier for screenshots. So you can use it to ask, hey, here's my code. What vulnerabilities exist in it, and then it will explain the different vulnerabilities so you're actually understanding what it's pointing out, not just saying, hey, here's the code you need to write instead. So it'll explain these different issues, and then it will go in and give you the code that it suggests that you apply, and you can choose to reject or deny it on a case-by-case basis. And then you can also ask it more questions about why it's suggesting certain things within the chat as well. Normally this would be a more live demo, but my computer is very slow in here, so we're just going to stick with a screenshot. So now AI as a teaching methodology. So artificial intelligence is often portrayed as dumbing things down, but I believe that AI has the potential to be a new teaching methodology. So much like when you're in school and you have different ways you can learn, whether that's in lecture or homework or exams or some other practice problems. WhiteRabbitNeo and other LLMs are another time to learn, whether that's about new cybersecurity concepts or something else. So one great application is by asking it questions and letting it take you down different rabbit holes as you solve a problem, so it teaches you as you go along rather than just blindly accepting what it's saying is true. So this is an example of, it'll load, a rabbit hole that I followed while preparing questions for a different talk. And so in this example, I'm showing, I'm asking it how to reverse Python bytecode without using dis, because my computer just was not cooperating without command. And so as you can see, I've just asked it how to reverse Python bytecode without using dis. I'll zoom in a little bit. So the first response from WhiteRabbitNeo discusses using dis, which it just shows that sometimes you have to ask an AI multiple times before you can actually get the answer you're looking for. So it's a lot of just trial and error and different prompting strategies as well. I then asked it to suggest some alternate tools, which it then did, and it told me to install them using pip. And so for a demonstration on how you can follow different rabbit holes down, I asked it to explain what pip is. I'll let it get caught up real quick. There we go. Does it not want to get caught up? I guess not. And so, there we go, of course. So then I'm asking it, what is pip? And it tells you, pip is a package management system used to install and manage software packages written in Python. But then when you try to use pip directly from the command line, it tells you get an error saying that the command isn't found because you have to use pip within a virtual environment. So to highlight how a student would tackle this, I then asked it how to initiate a virtual environment. And so WhiteRabbitNeo not only tells you how to initiate the virtual environment and walks you through the different commands, but it also explains what those commands do. So you're actually learning and reinforcing it in your brain rather than just copy and pasting into your command line. Now you can see I've just asked it how to initiate a virtual environment. Then you can see it teaches you how to use what the different commands mean when you're initiating an environment, and also a little bit about virtual environments themselves. So another example of using WhiteRabbitNeo to learn is using it to explain different complex topics. So in this example, I've asked WhiteRabbitNeo to explain binary exploitation at 9th grade reading level, since that is the average reading level for an adult in the United States. And that's true. I'm not making fun of the American education system. And so while binary exploitation is a pretty complex topic, WhiteRabbitNeo did a good job of distilling the basics to the level I asked it to. And in its response, I read that an attacker identifies a vulnerability in a program or system and then uses it to launch an attack. And they can do this by crafting malicious input or by exploiting the vulnerability in a way that allows them to execute arbitrary code. So then I followed up with WhiteRabbitNeo and I asked it, how can attackers inject malicious code into binary files? So WhiteRabbitNeo gave me several different suggestions on how I can do this and explained each one of them as well. So then if I was interested in learning more, say about how a buffer overflow attack works, I could then ask a follow-up question on that. So now I want to highlight an example of using WhiteRabbitNeo in an agentic framework to analyze logs and suggest remediations. So there's a couple of API requests that start off at the beginning of this workflow, and each of them sends an API request to a different website. So this one requests, I believe it sends to the National Vulnerability Database. And then the next one receives the logs that you would like for WhiteRabbitNeo to analyze. And then finally, this API request, I believe, uses vulncheck as a backup for the NVD. So next, next there's a step that asks it to sort the vulnerabilities by severity. So from the outputted CVEs, it'll filter all vulnerabilities that report CVEs that require only sonic wall components, since that's what we're looking at in the logs, and allow for privilege escalation, remote code execution, or some other means used to create an admin account. So just looking for vulnerabilities in the data that we collected from our sonic wall to allow for privilege escalation. Finally, it'll ask it to conduct a red teaming penetration test, and you can see the prompt here for that. So I won't actually run this one here, but I do have just a one that's been ran in the past. So you can see the different API requests that have gone out. And then you can see that it's filtered the vulnerabilities by severity to show which specific NVD or CVE should be used to craft the exploit for Sonic Wall. And then finally, it will conduct the red team penetration test. So it'll write up a short summary and then give you the code, which you can then run. Obviously, I will not run it myself here, to actually go in and utilize this vulnerability to create an admin account. So I hope these examples gave you a bit of an idea on how you can use WhiteRabbitNeo and AI in general to, my slides come back up? I guess not. You can just see what I see. So I hope this gave you a good starting point on how you can use WhiteRabbitNeo and AI models in general in your cybersecurity practices, and thank you for attending. I do have rabbit enamel pins and stickers up here if anyone wants them, but I'm happy to take questions first as well. Yes?
Did you get this to write a minified JavaScript that collects credit card information?
I don't see why not.
So I was able to do it through 3.5 ChatGPT, but it took a lot of trickery, phrasing things in specific ways to make it do it. And initially I got it to do it, and then once it didn't fight me at all.
Once you've broken it, you know.
I mean, like, and don't do crime. I'm going to go down there and look for them. I was just curious if I could, and actually I can even walk you through the presentation later, but I was like, okay, but I spent 15 minutes just fighting it.
Yeah.
Phrasing it in a very specific way. You know, I'm a security researcher, I swear to God, I'm using my college for good, and so I look at this and I go, well, this is going to save me 15 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
I just said, would you please just do this?
So Yeah, like I said, I have not tried that specific example, and I encourage you all to use WhiteRabbitNeo in ethical applications. But I don't see why it wouldn't. Yeah. Yes.
If I recall correctly, several of the LLM models obviously use censorship tools to go ahead and keep people from going into various areas that they're concerned about. But it seems that some of them have also used the censorship to try to step on things that they know that particular models aren't particularly good at, or that they just kind of give crap answers for. So when you remove that, is there any way to protect you from the notion where you just wandered into something that this particular model is bad at answering, other than just kind of experimenting and seeing what works?
Experimenting. So in our evaluation process, we do try like a ton of different use cases and trying to identify any weaknesses so that we can strengthen those before we like release the model. But obviously anything that an AI puts out, you should verify before you're pushing it straight into your production. So I think you had one next.
Yeah, can I like download and run WhiteRabbitNeo myself? And then also, is there like an API available I can use?
So there's not a free API available, but you can either use it on, if you go to whiterabbitneo.com, it'll direct you to the login to create a free account for using it in the chat. And then are you familiar with Hugging Face? So it's like GitHub for AI models. So you can use it if you have a large enough computer. We have a bunch of different models on there. On our Hugging Face, there's also a link to the Discord server, which I run. So if you have any questions or need help with setting them up, I'm happy to help. Yep.
Do you know what the resource requirements are for self-hosted?
Yes, I can give them to you after. I just have to pull them up. Yep.
What languages, programming languages, have you seen it perform in? Like, what are its strengths and weaknesses on those?
I've seen it use everything back to Cobalt. So obviously I've not tried every coding language in existence, but I haven't heard of it doing particularly poorly with any language.
What is the hallucination vector here? Because I've seen other models perform up to like 30 to 40% time to perform, right? So since there is no censorship, does it decrease or increase or?
So if you're just using it as the model itself, it's liable to hallucination. One way that you can ground against that is by using some sort of RAG with it. So that's like giving it a document library to pull from and base its answers off of. So that's just not making things up based off of its pre-trained data. Does that make sense? Yes. Sure. Any more questions? All right, well, thank you, and you guys can enjoy lunch.